Now, in the world of sports, Nigeria will play a friendly match against Guinea in Abu Dhabi, United Arab Emirates, on Monday. The friendly will be the only warm-up game for the Eagles, who were initially built to play Burkina Faso and Cape Verde before both games were called off. It will also wrap up Nigeria's training camp in Dubai, as the Eagles were built to return to Nigeria Tuesday, January 9, ahead of their departure to Ivory Coast via Lagos on Wednesday, January 10. The Eagles will take on Equatorial Guinea on January 14 in their first match of Group A before further clashes with host nation Ivory Coast 4 days later. Their final Group A game is against Guinea-Bissau on January 22. Now, to discuss this, we're joined by Olajide Bolarinwa, a sports analyst. Hello, Olajide. Thank you so much for joining me at this time.
Yeah, it's a pleasure, and thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Now, Olajide, is this the best time to host the AFCON tournament, knowing that major leagues around the world are still running?
Well, it's not the best time, and I remember in 2019 they had to switch to the summer. That's the summer for Europe to host AFCON. But with the problems of weather, they had to bring it back to January when most leagues will be active. And it is quite understandable because you look at the terrain in Africa, it's usually so rainy when it's summer in Europe. And some clubs have always complained, saying, no, we don't want to release our players. But FIFA has stated that no matter what, you have to release players for AFCON. So in 2021, it was brought back to January when it was hosted by Cameroon. And, this year is a Cote d'Ivoire, so it still had to be brought back. I will always say it's not the best time to host the tournament because players always find it difficult leaving their respective clubs, and clubs always going, head to head, loggerheads with federations of the African teams. So hopefully we can find a resolution at some point, and it's fair to both parties, the players, the clubs, and the country.
All right, Olajide. Now, the Super Eagles of Nigeria have been tagged favorites by other countries, but some fans do not share the same view at all. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, the word favorites is a huge word to use for Nigeria. It's a big word to use. We've seen how disappointing the Super Eagles can be at major tournaments. In fact, when we expect them to deliver, most times they don't deliver. So I wouldn't count Nigeria as one of the favorites to win this year's competition. We don't have the best team yet. You might argue that we have exciting attackers who can score. They all do well for their respective clubs. But as a team, I'm not so sure. Of late, we saw how difficult it was for Nigeria to beat Lesotho in Nigeria. The game ended 1-1. They're looking to qualify for the next World Cup, but they couldn't beat Lesotho. In the second game, they couldn't beat Zimbabwe. So naturally, traditionally, these are teams that Nigeria should beat, but they couldn't beat those teams. So what inspires the confidence that they will go into the biggest competition in Africa and win it? I'm not so sure about that. Other teams are well prepared. They are better. They deliver consistently. I cannot say that for the Super Eagles of Nigeria. So I
Well,
would say
either
keep
way,
your expectations low. If somehow they get to progress further in the competition, fine. But do not be too expectant with the present set of players that Nigeria has to offer.
well, either way, I still believe we should be hopeful, and be positive. So, just before we
We should
go,
believe. We should believe, of course, but don't be so sure with the present players.
well, our hopes have always been dashed, for a while now, but let's still stay hopeful. Anything can happen, this time around. But do you believe that there will be upsets during this tournament?
There are always upsets at major competitions, and when you look at AFCON, it's one competition that you will always see a small team in quotes, you know, beat a big team. So it usually happens. But when we talk about upsets, I don't think there will be upsets to who wins the tournament. There will be some major wins for the smaller teams. It makes the competition exciting. But for the eventual winner, I do not expect an upset. It will always be one of the top teams in Africa. And when I say top teams in Africa, I mention countries like Cameroon, Senegal, who are the present champions, the host Ivory Coast, Morocco, Egypt, Nigeria. These are teams that are favorites going into major competitions in Africa. So it will still be the same, and we should expect a good tournament. It's always fun playing in Africa, and I don't expect this year's edition to be anything different.
All right, well, thank you so much, Olajide Bolarinwa, for your time and for, your opinion on this.
Thank you for having me.